Hey everyone, this is Randy from BibleBuyingGuide.com. Today I'm taking a look at the Defined King James Bible. This is from a King James only publisher, but the tools that are in it are really good for anyone that wants to use the King James. I'll show you that as we go. The leather doesn't tell what it is. It says that it's genuine leather, but it feels more like Mariva calfskin. It does have a stamped grain, but it's very thick. It's the fold over with paste down liner or paste off liner. It doesn't look to be reinforced, although it could be. I'm not really sure. But it feels thick. It feels soft. Not real soft, but I like the look and feel of that. The spine is a little busy. But there's the information on the spine. Some of it's a little bit difficult to read. Big block gold letters. And it is printed in USA. I think the paper is around 30 GSM, although I'm not 100% sure. That may not be the case. Alright, so it has a lot of information in the Bible itself, and it gives good information on how to use it and what it all means. Starting off, we have a yearly Bible reading plan. I actually don't like this plan, and I don't recommend using it. But what it does is it gives you the day, and it gives you the reading for the day. But the purpose of this is to give you 85 verses per day. And it just stops at the 85 verses. Even if there's one verse left in the chapter or in the passage, they're marked with a little diamond, and you'll see it in the text. You'll see as we go what it is that I don't really like about it. The paper itself is not very opaque, but it's opaque enough as long as the text lines up on the page. Where it doesn't line up on the page, you see a lot of show through. And it wasn't printed with line matching, so some pages line up well, some pages don't. It gives a synopsis of each book, and this just shows you what the chapters are, and then kind of a description of those chapters. And this way it kind of works like section headings, but they're all here in the front. And then it tells you how many chapters, how many verses, how many words, and then what page to turn to for that book, book of the Bible. Good information. And you can see here, these don't line up as well as these do. Where these line up on this side, it's very readable, and where it doesn't line up on this side, it's not quite as readable. A little bit of a closer shot there. Then we get into the Bible text, and this is the main point of this whole Bible, and why I think it's good for anyone that wants to use a King James, regardless of anything else in here. All right, so what we have, verse by verse, each verse is indented like a paragraph, and then within the verses, you're going to see some bold text. And the bold text means there's a definition at the bottom of the page, and it gives a number for each one. So turn to the bottom of the page, and then you have definitions. Now, these are from lots of different resources. It shows in the front who wrote them and where they got their information. And it does seem to be very good quality definitions from what I've seen so far. And it also seems to have more definitions than any other edition that I've seen outside of a study Bible. And also, I haven't noticed any King James only notes or anything like that. It's just definitions for the words. And it's words that are out of date, words that we don't use anymore, words that have changed in meaning. And if a word appears on the page more than once, like we saw in the previous one, or like right here, it's only posted once down here at the bottom. So, prevailed 3B, prevailed 3B, overwhelmed. And then here is one of the diamonds that shows where a reading ends. So you can just scan through and find quickly where something ends, where the reading ends and begins. Across the top we have the first and last verse on the page. And then also notice it has wide margins. Now the margins themselves are wide enough for small notes. They're 1 1/4 all the way around. The font is 12 point. And as you can see, sometimes the lines do match up really well, and this is very readable. The text itself has a lot of space in the text in some places and then not in others. That just shows it's not like a high-end design like you're going to get from 2K Denmark or anything like that. So I definitely wouldn't compare this to higher end design, but the design itself is not really the point of this Bible. The point of this Bible is the definitions, and then of course this one being large print and having the wide margins. I do find the 12-point font easy to read, especially where it lines up on the page, where the lines match. And then I find it dark enough to read all the way through. It's consistently dark. It's black letter text. And here's an example of the readings. This reading ends here. We have 2 verses left in Psalm 32. I think I would have balanced that a little better. I understand that they want to give you 85 verses per day, but I would have adjusted that. You don't need to stop at verse 9 when there's 11 verses in Psalm 32. And that's consistent. You're going to find several along that line. The headings of Psalms are included in the text. The heading itself doesn't take the place of verse 1 like you would find in a Jewish Bible, but it's added to verse 1, but then also marked separately, so you know that it's not part of verse 1, but it is part of the text. So this just shows that they're not considering this as a separate part of the text that's added later. They're considering it as part of the biblical text. Trinitarian Bible Society has the same stance. They print the heading the same font size in the same typeface as the rest of it, but it's not put in verse 1. But they do mark that it's separate, so you do see some differences there. Here's another example of a reading, Psalm 36, and then it ends at verse 11, but we have 12 verses. So yeah, I don't recommend following this. Personally, I would either adjust the reading plan or just take it out. That's me. I do like these definitions, though. There's a lot of good definitions there. I do find it better for study than for reading. And then at the end of each book, there's information about the verb endings that you're going to find in that book. A lot of good information here. Teaches how to use the King James. And it does it in a way that doesn't come across as King James only. It's just information, and it works really well. So I think that would appeal to anyone, not just someone who is King James only or who wants to avoid King James onlyism. They would still find this information helpful and usable. And as you can see here, it is a black letter text. I do find this paper easy enough to turn. So here's an example of some notes. So I've written using this marker, a Micron 01, and I'm using purple. And the reason I think I don't recommend black, and the reason I don't, black would show through more. Here's an example of how this shows through. So I think purple, blue, green, I think some of these colors are better than black. Brown would be good. So let's turn to Joel. I wrote the same note there. And I wrote this one in green. So there's that one. And that's using this marker, an 05 pigment micron. And here's how it looks on the other side of the page. So I do recommend the 01. And I recommend purple, green, blue, brown. I think those are the better colors to use. Other than that, I think the paper is kind of thin for notes, and it does have show through. Then the very back is a booklet that talks about the King James. Now this is a King James only booklet, and it does go through their information about King James and about modern translations. So those who are not King James only would not be interested in this. But just like I say on all study material, use it for reference, do your own study. I would say that regardless, even if it's something I wrote. So they go through the newer translations and provide information. And it is kind of an older document. They don't include the latest translations or anything like that. Then a couple of charts. 3 charts. And then that is it. So if you're not interested in King James onlyism, you won't like the document in the back. But I still feel like the notes on the pages are still good information. These don't feel like they're from King James only at all. They're good quality notes. So this is a large Bible. It feels like a desk edition. I don't think I want to carry this around. Now, if I do the overall size, which is the size you're going to need for a case, you're looking at 9" by 11.5 by 1.5, and let's weigh this thing. 3 pounds 11 ounces. All right, now to compare to a few editions that are kind of similar in a way. The King James reference, this is a giant print reference edition from Thomas Nelson, and all reference editions from Thomas Nelson in the comfort print include definitions on the page. And then you can see the difference in size here. That's just huge. This edition from Thomas Nelson is labeled as a 12 point, and you can see the difference in the font. It's a little bit darker font, less space in the text, less white space. So you're going to see a lot more white space in the Defined King James. So there's how they compare as far as the text goes. See if I can zoom. So there's how they compare in text. Now the reason I bring this one up is because it also includes definitions on the page, but it's a little bit different. Let's see. Let's turn to the same place in both. So it's a little difficult to show, but here are the notes for Isaiah chapter 1, first page. And then here are the notes for Isaiah chapter 1, first page from Thomas Nelson. So you do see that there are a few notes in there, but it also includes the standard footnotes from the King James, while the Defined King James does not. So you're only going to see definitions here, but you are going to see a lot more definitions. Let's keep comparing. We'll take a look at the McLaren, simply because the information is at the bottom of the page. So it's still in the footer. This one is a slightly smaller font, and here's what it looks like for the footer of Isaiah chapter 1. So it still has the same notes as the previous edition. This one has more references than the previous edition, while the Defined King James does not include references. But there was it again, one more time. And then probably the Bible with the most notes is the Lion from Humble Lamb. Now this one, outside of a study Bible, this one has definitions at the bottom of the page, and these are from several well-known dictionaries. Here's how they compare. This is also a reference edition and doesn't have as many notes as the Defined King James. Probably has the second most, though. So if the definitions are your goal, the Humble Lamb Lion is a good edition if you're looking for something at a regular size. But if you're looking for something that's a larger size with a wide margin and more definitions, then the Defined King James is what you're looking for. So that's my quick look at the Defined King James. This was provided in exchange for an honest review from the KJV Store. The large print is large. It's a large Bible. I don't recommend it to everyone. The note space it's good enough space, but the paper is not necessarily my favorite for notes. If you're interested in a resource with definitions on the page, and you want the most of them, and you're wanting as detailed as possible, then the Defined King James is what you're looking for. So I'll place links in the notes so you can make a purchase if you're interested. And thanks for watching.